Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Driving Production. In this episode, we're going to be lowering the Mazda. So we're going to be lowering the Mazda using some lowering spring. These are from the brand Eibach and they are from the Sportline series. From what I read on their website, they advertise that the front should lower about 2.2 inch, and the rear should lower around 2 inch. Let's go right into it and let's install them on the car.
First off, I'm jacking up the car and putting some axle stands underneath. With the Mazda secured on the stands, I'm removing the 21mm lug nuts and removing both rear wheels. With the help of some penetrating oil, I'm spraying the bolts and nuts I'm about to remove. Now I'm removing the 14mm nut from the sway bar link so I can get the sway bar out of the way. If you're doing this, you'll need to get an Allen key to keep it from spinning when it gets looser. This is what the sway bar looks like, removed on both sides. After lifting the control arm with the jack, I'm now removing the 17mm bolt that's holding the control arm to the knuckle. Then I'm slowly decompressing the spring by lowering the jack. One thing I like to do is to clean the threads of the nut by going through a few times with the impact. All that's left now is to remove the OEM spring. Here I'm installing the Eibach spring while making sure that it's well seated. Then it's just a matter of reinstalling everything the same way I took it off. Compressing the spring with the jack, installing the 17mm bolt holding the control arm to the knuckle, then lowering the arm and reconnecting the sway bar link to the control arm.
So I just finished installing the rear springs in the back. I gotta say it went pretty well. It's pretty straightforward. There's only one bolt to remove, and then you gotta remove the rear sway bar links so that the sway bar comes down. That took me a little bit by surprise. Honestly, at first I thought I only had to lower the control arm, but when I did so, I realized the sway bar was in the way. Removing the top sway bar link, that's a little bit tedious because it does require an Allen key if the sway bar linkage is turning on itself, and then you got to use a wrench to do the whole thread. So it can be a bit tedious and it's kind of in a weird area. Nothing was seized. There was a bit of rust, obviously, being a car that's winter driven. Apart from that, it went really well. So let's just drop the car and let's move to the front.
Now I can reinstall the wheels and drop the car on the ground. Moving to the front, like in the rear, I'm jacking up the car, removing the wheels, putting the car on stands, and spraying penetrating oil on the nuts and bolts.
So it's the next morning. It was getting a little bit late yesterday, so I just decided to finish up this morning. It was a good thing because I got the penetrating oil to be able to sit overnight. So hopefully the bolts and nuts, they'll easily get loosened. So that's pretty much it. Let's just get back to it and remove the front struts.
I'm starting out by removing the top 14mm sway bar link nut by cracking it with a ratchet and fully removing it with a wrench and an Allen key. With the sway bar link out of the way, I'm removing the 17mm bolt that's holding the strut to the knuckle. Then I'm removing the brake line from the strut. To remove the strut from the knuckle, I'm hammering it until the knuckle pops out. I'm finally removing the top strut mount and removing the whole shock assembly.
So I just finished removing the first strut on the driver's side. It went pretty well. Now we just have to remove the spring. The best way to do this is to compress the spring with a spring compressor and then to remove the nut from the top. I don't have access to that, so I'm just gonna carefully remove that with an impact and let it unload. This is not the safest way, but I never had any issues doing it that way. I'm not saying that's the way you should do it. You should definitely get a spring compressor. It's definitely the best way to do it. Let's go and install the new lowering spring, and then we'll be able to reinstall it on the driver's side.
Having the shock disassemble, I'm reattaching the top strut mount to the car. By placing the strut on the spring in the knuckle, I'm able to compress it with the jack. Then I'm reinstalling the 17mm nut at the top of the strut mount to reassemble the shock together. Now I'm reinstalling the strut in the front knuckle, again using a jack to get it to slide in the knuckle. From here, I'm just putting everything I took off earlier by reinstalling the 17mm bolt and the knuckle, lowering the jack, reconnecting the brake line, and reinstalling the sway bar link. With everything finally done, I'm reinstalling the wheels and dropping the car on the ground.
Alright guys, so everything is installed on the car. I'm really excited with the results. I just came back from driving the car a little bit so that the suspension settles in and the ride height kind of adjusts itself. This is what it looked like before.
I got secrets, hard to keep them.
And this is what it looks like now.
Feelings close so they can't get out. What if I just told you I wanted you to be all mine? Would you come around? What if I just told you I loved you? If I let you in, would you just let me down?
So like I said, I'm really happy on how it turned out. I think it's the perfect ride height for a daily driver. The comfort is still there after driving it a little bit. I won't go into too much detail. I want to do a full in-car review on how it handles and other benefits I've seen from just driving the car around. I'll be doing that soon. There's a few other suspension tweaks and mods that I'm going to be doing soon before I get the car online, and then I'll be doing a review of those things. And that's pretty much it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.